everybody. So tonight I'm talking about red light, saunas, EMFs. I'm going to be doing it with the founder, the scientist, the developer of Therasage. He's made saunas, red lights, EMF protection. He's got all these tools, ozone, water filters. They're helping everybody to stay well. And I'm really excited to have him on tonight. Well, hello there. How are you tonight?
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am so happy to have you on here tonight. You know, I was just telling everybody about the incredible tools that you have produced and made, and I'm excited to ask you questions because honestly, having a scientist able to talk to me and tell me the science behind why these therapies work, I'm truly excited.
Mm.
So, Robbie, tell me a little bit, like, what got you into this?
It started about 22 years ago. Prior lives, had undergraduate and postgraduate training in health sciences. I started Case Western Reserve Medical School. I studied business and engineering and the sciences, both psych and bio in undergrad. And then kind of trying to figure out what direction I really wanted to go, where I felt I found my purpose or my bliss in a sense. Then we started a family, and my daughter in her early teens, 12 to 15, contracted Lyme disease. And so she got hit hard. And this is 22 years ago. And I know you can really relate to most of the things I'm going to say, you know. And Lyme was sort of in its infancy in terms of the hierarchy of understanding it, the amount of research that was going into it. We found Dr. Joe Burrascano, the top-notch guy, who was kind enough to take Julia on as a patient. But we were living in South Florida. He was up in New York. And so we would travel every 6 weeks to visit with him. He would treat her. And then it became really apparent early in the game that most of the onus and the time on her treatment really was on us, as it is with all the families out there. You see your practitioner, once a week, once a month. And for us, it was every 6 weeks. And then the rest of the time, you're managing that healthcare as a family unit. And because I had skills, I was actually my daughter's nurse, and she had PICC lines, and I did the whole, job with that. So as I was getting into it, I was kind of analyzing from the medical side what her major symptoms were, and from my interpretation, she was expressing very, very high levels of toxicity, inflammation, cognitive challenges, and she was experiencing body pain and joint pain and so forth. So as I was sort of breaking it down, for some reason I was focusing on toxicity, and then I was looking at best methods to detox, and I discovered that there are actually frequencies within the sun spectrum that will mobilize all the toxins in your body. I mean, that was, I thought, the beginning and the end, Jaban, honestly. But what I didn't realize, as in most development, you discover something, you sort of walk through one door, right? And then you realize there's 5 doors behind that, and then there's 5 doors behind that, and so forth. And it really was a journey, and I'm still on the journey. So I'm so blessed to be with you tonight, to have an opportunity to share some of my research and experience with you and with all the viewers tonight, because people need to understand that there are real solutions, and don't necessarily have to be really expensive. You just have to sort of organize your hierarchy of sort of how the body works, how your body's expressing all those things, and then figure out that little puzzle, and then work with it. And so when I discovered the concept of infrared spectrum or infrared frequencies, I then took a look at what devices were available for the public. And at that point in time, 22 years ago, infrared was basically being used by sports medicine doctors and clinics to basically heal players from pain, from acute injuries, and along with other things, to try to get them, lower their pain threshold, get them on the field, get their bodies back in shape. So that was very interesting to me also from the pain management side. So anyway, I did some research. I started thinking and developing in my mind applications and devices and so forth that we possibly could utilize. I took 2 months off. I went to Asia, to China, and I found some factories, started developing devices, mostly just for our use. Julia was doing so amazing that the doctors saw that, and they asked us to basically start developing this for them and their patients and their clinics. And that was really the genesis of Therasage, and it's been sort of an uphill swing since then. So it was really it was something, and it is still something, because we're still discovering and inventing things and applications and stacking certain technologies together to create synergies that will enhance the wellness journey and experience, all from a sort of a natural platform, really harnessing the body and the physiology of the body and how we interact with nature, as you know, as it was for our ancestors, frankly.
Wow. So it's a labor of love for you, for your daughter to develop this. Just like for me, it was a labor of, I was sick and I wanted to figure out how to get well. And to that point, you're talking about something you've developed. So I've got this with me. I'm actually down in Mexico right now on a conference, and I didn't want to travel without it. And guys, if you haven't seen this, look at this. This is not one of the big bulky red lights that you can't take with you. This is light. It fits in my backpack. I can travel with it. It connects to my computer and cell phone as far as energy source. It's a pretty fun little tool. And I'm sitting with it on my back because I love red light. We're going to get into why I love red light. So that's my first question for you here, besides what brought you into this, which is, what is red light? What is infrared? And these technologies that you're developing, why light? What's so good about light?
Well, first off, it's primal. And so the body, you know, we're so advanced in so many ways in education and culture and technology, but in, you know, as advanced as we are in some ways, we've also departed greatly from, in my opinion, from the way nature kind of intended us to be in our environment. If we go back 8,000 years to the days of Moses, Jesus, Buddha, all those guys, you know, we were walking on the earth, we lived in caves or tents and on the land, we woke up to the sun. We spent the whole day out in the sun. And, you know, I think that the major causes of death then were being eaten by a creature or being, you know, speared or arrowed by a warring tribe or nation. You know, it wasn't all the diseases that we see, the modern diseases like diabetes and cancer and you know, Lyme and you know, all those kinds of things that we experience today. That was really the causes. And so incorporated in everything we do, we try to bring us back to those primal stages. We bring light frequencies into the body. We're basically light beings in a sense. And so if you think about it, in nature, the sun shines on the earth. And by the way, the infrared spectrum is responsible for warming 82% of the earth. There's more than 100 years of science on infrared. And there were some great people like Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein that actually in the 40s did theses on understanding the effects of sun thermals, sun energy on the earth, and how it affects nature, plants, animals, all of us, everything that's living. And so all this stuff really drew me in, Jaban, honestly. I mean, it was crazy, crazy great. So basically, the sun shines on the earth, and there are a whole full array of frequencies that come to the earth all day. It starts with gamma rays all the way out to radio waves, and as far as the full spectrum of things. And then I homed in on the parts of sun frequency that really change our physiology. And so if you look at the full spectrum of frequencies, UV light, which is A, B, and C, UV light, is just before natural light, which is the visible spectrum that we see like the rainbow. And then after that, we have the infrared spectrum. And there's a lot of interplay between UV and infrared. So UV will change your pH, UV will help the production of natural vitamin D, so important for body function, right? But there are some frequencies within the UV spectrum that will actually, if you get too much, will be harmful for your DNA and RNA, the very sort of the blueprint of your body structure. So, but what I noticed was that as much as you could be overexposed to UV, then you weigh into the infrared spectrum, and that's the healing spectrum. So whatever damage you might have done, it's the balance of nature, Dave, and whatever damage you may have done from overexposure to UV, you get corrected and remediated with infrared. That also intrigued me. So what's so special about infrared? There's 3 wavelengths. We have the near frequencies, the mid frequencies, and the far frequencies. Most of the science was developed on far. It really has only been within the last 3 to 5 years that the near frequencies have become more in the spotlight, not to be corny. And because of that, there are a whole array of device developers that are making specialized frequencies, just in near frequency products, and then far frequency devices. And there's sort of a rage between the two. What I did was took a page out of the playbook of nature. And so I've studied, and I continue to study the health aspects of ancient cultures in the world history. And I also look at nature in general, and I try to combine all those components as sort of the fundamentals or the pillars of everything we make here. And then I sort of allow to see the fast forward play of how these interactions work within the body. And then I kind of adjust as I move along and discover different things, and I keep incorporating those new discoveries into everything we make. And so the Trilight Panel that you held up I started developing around 36 months ago. It took me about 18 months to perfect it. It's very unusual because it has a light diode, an LED, that has 3 different frequencies in it. So most diodes, LEDs, are what's called monochromatic. They have a single light bulb with a single frequency. And in many of the near frequency companies, they create arrays or a cocktail by combining different rows of different frequencies of monochromatic bulbs. I looked at that and I started to question, well, why does the light LED have to have one frequency? And there's no real reason other than it's sort of the way the industry went. And so I thought, if we are light beings, and if you look at the way the structure of nature is, sun shines on the earth, the plant kingdom converts light energy to plant energy, animals eat plant, we eat animals, we're all really digesting and recommuting or translating light energy into our cells. That's why it's so powerful. And that's why the body reacts so amazingly to it. And so, frankly, I had an interplay, and I thought in my mind about which direction to go. And because most of the science was on far frequencies, because they were the more deeper penetrating frequencies, I started to question, if there's a balance in nature, so it should be important, like a symphony, to have all of those frequencies, because each of us need them in order to be healthy, to be balanced energetically and structurally and on a cell level. And so that's the approach that I took, and we're pretty happy with it. The only thing that I've done recently is, particularly in the infrared sauna, which is one of our jewels of our collection of devices that we've made, we brought the Trilight system in to sort of dial up the near part of the spectrum, mostly to answer to what we're seeing in clinic, because the epigenetics of how the environment, our toxic environment, is affecting our bodies, and which is being expressed in in symptoms, as you see every day, and you deal with it every day, as I do, not just personally and with your family, but also with what you see in the clinic. I'm the same way. And so I'm sort of pleased and in a unique position where I can get just a ton of information from all the doctors in our network about what they're seeing and the changes they're seeing. And so as a device developer, about maybe 10 years ago, I made the Thera 360 sauna, just the regular one. And what I did was I looked at, NASA actually publishes the arrays of frequencies that touch the earth every day. And because our atmosphere changes, the thickness or the density of our atmosphere changes from minute to minute, it acts like a filter. And so the cocktail of frequencies that come from the sun through our atmosphere changes from moment to moment. And so, not to get too technical, but I took the first standard deviation of an annual average of the infrared frequencies that hit the Earth, and I used that as my formula for the regular 360, which is just an amazing device by itself. Then I started to ponder, and I said, you know, I've been teaching as a guest speaker at Hippocrates Health Institute here in South Florida in West Palm Beach for about 15 years. And I love, there's a certain venue room that I speak in, and it holds about 50 people. And I stare across the room at a full mural of Hippocrates. And it started to bother me because I thought to myself, well, you know, this goes back about 3 years, and I'm saying, gee, you know, one of his mantras is that food is your medicine, right? And then I started to think, well, you know what? The food of Hippocrates' days, 200 years ago, is very different than the food of today. You know, when you can go to a gas station and buy a Twinkie, and by the way, I have nothing against Twinkies, and I that has a shelf life of 500 years. You just start to wonder about, you know, where are we going with this, right? And same thing for the environment. You know, the environment is very different these days. So I thought that it might be time to actually integrate an upgrade in our sauna, which we call the Thera 360 Plus, that has the Trilight panels that adjust the formula a little bit more towards the near frequencies, because as you started when you came on, red light, near frequencies, they augment mitochondrial support, so people are under mitochondrial stress now. And they also produce a transient gas naturally that's called nitric oxide, which we start making less of as we get older. It's part of why there's oxidative stress and why we start to age. One of my dear friends, Dr. Nathan Bryan, is one of the world's authorities on nitric oxide. So we've gotten close over the years. He makes supplements and so forth that bring nitric oxide back into the body, which we need in order to produce, well, it does two things. It vasodilates the near frequencies that allows better circulation for micro circulation for your vessels. And it also triggers your blood in your body to grab more oxygen when you need it. And as we age, we need more. That's oxidative stress. So basically, the Trilight panels shifts my cocktail within that infrared sauna a little bit more towards the near to address what I believe is today's challenges, today's solutions, you know, for today's solutions. If that makes sense to you.
Well, it makes sense a little bit to me. I use nitric oxide with clients from the supplement side of things quite often from L-arginine. Right. And then now you're talking with light. So that brings me into to think about detox. So we want to vasodilate. We want to allow for the body to work in a more effective way so we can clear toxicities, like you were saying, from our environment, which now is so toxic everywhere we go. So what about red light or infrared saunas, I should say, as your other tool there? How does that help our detox protocol? Because I know you're saying the nitric oxide, but is there other pieces to it? And we always talk about, Dr. Jess says, kill, bind, sweat. So
right.
How do these tools help?
Bind, sweat. Interesting. Kill, bind, sweat. So sweating is one of the most efficient ways to get toxins out of the body. You can pee them out, poop them out. Some toxins, as you know from working out, like lactic acid that builds up in your muscles, that actually evaporates. But if you could improve circulation, you're actually augmenting all of those systems in a sense. And sweating is just one of the greatest detox pathways to actually push toxins out. And so part of the equation, and I felt this happened in research about 6-7 years ago. I said, well, look, we really created a beautiful device that does so much, but it's not enough just to mobilize all the toxins in your body. You got to get them out. And there's different layers. It's like peeling an onion. So the most available toxins are generally the ones that are stored in your fat. And those are the environmental toxins, things that you bring into the body by the foods that we're eating, air that we're breathing, water that we're drinking or bathing in. And so it stores in your fat. And maybe 72 or 73% of your fat molecule is actually made of water. And so what's unique about infrared is that there's a wavelength within the spectrum of infrared frequencies that harmonizes, resonates with the same frequency as the water inside of us. And that's what makes infrared technology, infrared saunas particularly, so amazing, because there's different types of saunas. I mean, you've seen this in different cultures, right? The whole Baltic area of the world, they basically have a sauna in every home, they in communities, and they do this as a community. And so that's what's called convection heat. So you've got a hot rock, or you've got a steam room, and so you got an element that's heating the ambient air between the heating element and your body, and that hot air warms up your skin, and then eventually that gets through that layer of fat under your skin, which is designed anatomically to basically insulate your insides from extreme heat or extreme cold. And so as that penetrates through, eventually it warms you up inside and raises your core temperature a little bit. But the challenge with convection heat is that it has to be at an extremely high temperature, 185 degrees, 200 degrees, in order for it to penetrate through that insulating layer of fat. So I don't know if you've probably been in a steam room a few times in your life, and is it easy for you to breathe in a steam room?
Not at all.
Yeah, and so we're not designed to be in that temperature for too long of a time. Now, conversely, you've got infrared. Infrared's amazing. The wavelength actually is radiant heat. It doesn't heat the ambient air between the sun, or in this case, the sauna, and your body. In fact, it penetrates directly into the body. And because it harmonizes at the same frequency as the water in the insulating layer of fat, it actually penetrates right through and goes right into and resonates into the densest parts of our bodies, which is our muscle mass or our organ tissue. And so that's where the whole symphony starts inside of you, because when that bioresonance, when that vibration from the sunlight actually starts to vibrate in the tissues, it liberates heat. Most of those areas, your organ tissues and your muscle masses, are surrounded by vessels, by blood vessels. And when the organ warms up, the vessel warms up vicariously. And when a vessel warms up, it vasodilates. It actually starts to expand, which increases your metabolic rate, your ability, your blood flow. And blood carries your DNA, your RNA, all of your nutrition, carries oxygen. And so if I can increase blood flow in your body, that's a great primal wellness platform right off the bat. And so that's one of the key things that the sauna does. And so back to the fat. So now we've got the sun rays, or the infrared frequencies, coming through that layer of fat. It's actually resonating with the water inside the fat. And when it starts to resonate, it actually breaks up all the covalent bonds between the toxins and where they're stored in both your tissues and in your fat, in the molecules, liberates them into your bloodstream. And then now the next stage is to get them out. And so sweating is a great way to get them out. And the second thing we love to do is to do a 2-stage binder protocol to actually act as like a little biosponge to soak up these different toxins we're liberating. It's like peeling an onion, Jaban. The first ones are the environmental chemicals, things we'd use in our households, the chemtrails, and various different things in the air that we're breathing. Now we're discovering that there's low levels of glyphosate in the waters we're drinking and in the air that we're breathing. And this is we're biofilters. We're grabbing all these things into our body, and we're filtering them out. They're getting stuck inside of us. And the more toxic the environment is getting, the more sick we're getting, because we're not built to get rid of all these toxins that we're experiencing. And so, sauna is one of the easiest, most inexpensive ways. If we can incorporate a half an hour of your time every day to do an infrared sauna, you're going to at least stay even with the toxins that you're bringing in and start pecking away at the ones that you've been accumulating over the years. And what we discovered in our research is that there's a direct correlation between high levels of toxicity and high levels of inflammation. Mm-hmm. And so if we can bring down toxicity, we bring down inflammation. And now we're in the ball game again. And I'm sure that you see this in your clinic, because most people that are symptomatic, it's because they're toxic. And so we do need to replenish the body with all the deficiencies, that the source of why we're toxic to start with may have caused, if it be a pathogen or something like that, you know? And then we have to go after the source to really rebalance ourselves. But to get ahead of the game, at least to start, you know, lowering toxicity and inflammation, you know, brings back more energy, more focus, better sleep, a whole cascade of great physiological events, and then gets you back in the game. And that gives the patient, you know, a feeling of that there's actually hope, a light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because working with chronic challenged individuals, right? After a while, it gets kind of depressing. You just think there's just no way I'm going to come out of this thing. And the second part is it actually gives the practitioner a little bit more time to get to that root source, you know. So it's a key area of development, I believe, for everyone to try to bring into their lives for that and many reasons.
Well, I heard a quote the other day, and I actually really liked it. They said, you know, we're all just trash cans. We just keep absorbing all the toxins in our environment until we overflow. That overflowing is all the symptoms that we develop. So I've been drawing a bucket, but I was like, you know, trash can just really truly fits because it's all that garbage that they're throwing at us, whether it's the glyphosates, the metals, molds, all those kinds of things that we're picking up throughout our lifetime that just keep weighing on us and weighing on us. And, you know, what I've seen is mitochondria tend to pick those things up. So when you're fat, can't store enough of it or fast enough, these molds and metals, these biological chemicals, radioactive elements, they get into the nanomotors of your mitochondria and they gum it up. And, you know, that's not the scientist word that you'd be using, but for me with patients, it gums it up. And then your energy starts to fail.
Right.
And we stop being able to heal and detox, think. So all the brain fog starts happening. You stop making normal hormone responses. Hair starts falling out. I can't tell you how many clients I get coming in that say, my hair's falling out. What's going on? Stop this. And I go, no. That's not the first thing. Hair is not important. It makes you look good, but it is not important to your body's survival. And all these processes that start breaking down, that's just the garbage overflowing. Because the rest of your body's been breaking down as the trash can's been filling up. So I love red light. I've seen red light. Like I said, I've been using it for years now. I had a bunch of knee pain from college athletics and dislocated patella, which is your kneecap, all kinds of issues there. And I could only squat maybe once a month in the gym. I love going to the gym, guys. And red light got me to 3 or 4 times. Sauna, the first several times I started doing sauna, I was detoxing. You know, I was sweating, but I wasn't binding the first few times. And I started getting all the same symptoms I got when I was doing metal detoxes. Now, my question is, and I know the answer a little bit, but you're going to give it in a much more scientific way. And I'm just going to say the word mold out there for everybody because I got so many moldies that follow me. What can doing saunas and red lights do for mold?
You know, it's a great question. And frankly, it's a big problem. And it's only getting worse. Like the areas that get hit the hardest generally are the coastal cities. You know, I live in South Florida, so this is a big one. And there are hundreds of variations of mold. And so that's one of the problems. So, it's an ongoing process, the whole challenge of mold. But you've got this organism that's sort of a perfect organism, like many of the other microbes out there. And it lives it only has a few little elements it needs to thrive. One is like a dark, damp environment, mostly. So it could happen in the basement. It could happen, you know, with a pipe that just started leaking, drip, 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 and then all of a sudden there's a saturation, and it's just a perfect storm for these guys to grow. So there are simple, inexpensive ways to discover what kind of mold you have, and some variations are extremely bad for you. And as you probably know, even from what you've seen in clinic, the bad mold that you may get exposed to, when it combines with someone that has Lyme disease or some other microbial overgrowths, it's just it's the worst combination I've ever seen. We've seen Lyme patients that basically manage their lives and are doing okay, and we're plodding along, they get hit with mold, bam, they become bedridden almost overnight, and they can't function. So what is it? It's a little organism, and it's sort of a perfect organism because it only knows how to do three things. It knows how to use up your body resources, it knows how to replicate or multiply, and it knows how to poop. We can measure all these things. We can measure the poop or the microtoxin that a mold puts out. And so we actually, in the blood, through a blood test, right? And you're familiar with all of those things. And so you can see what kinds of molds, and you can also see the concentration of the population that's inside of you. And then you can see the result of it because it expresses itself in a symptom of sort. And so that microtoxin is basically, as it's said or named, formally named, it's a toxin. It's just like some other kind of toxin in the body. And it's a small one. It's what we call a nano, or what I call silt in the toxic world. And so there's a challenge with that, with the body, because actually those microtoxins are so small that you can stir them up with saunas and you can use chelation protocols, but it isn't necessarily going to get them out of the body. And that's why I love using certain binders in my protocol, because it's sort of that pull-catch term that Chris Shade discovered over it, or named it Quicksilver. You know, you pull that toxin out from wherever it's stored, and then you need to have a resource to catch it and then bind it up, in a sense, make it bigger so that your filtering organs, like your liver, kidney, pancreas, colon, can actually filter these toxins out and get them out of the body. And so part of my epiphany, in a sense, was to just say it isn't just good enough to make a device that stirs it up, because essentially the infrared sauna and infrared technology, I love the full spectrum because it's catching everything, but basically infrared will mobilize all the toxins in your body. And so how do you get them out? That's the interplay. And so we started using binder protocols. The first ones are the macro binders, like charcoal or bentonite clay. There are certain foods that are chelators too. Cilantro is one that I really like. I started herbing with cilantro and basically everything. I couldn't get enough. There was one year where I started doing this thing, Jaban, you might love this. I'd get an herb and I'd say to myself, man, I need more cilantro in my life. Okay. And then I just started peppering every food that I ate with cilantro, because I started understanding the natural effect of cilantro as a chelator and a binder in the body, you know? And so that's what I mean when I say there are simple things. So part of today is just bringing them out to our viewers so that they understand that you can do this too. And, you know, like, yes, you and I are both teachers in a sense, or we're the vessels to get this information to our public and to our followers, so that they can understand with a little bit of sort of tweaking our normal daily routine, you could really make a huge difference in your overall health profile. So, yeah.
Well, I gotta warn everybody, cilantro, make sure you're taking other binders with it. It alone is gonna mobilize and not grasp those toxins and pull them all the way out. So be a little careful with cilantro, everybody. It's good. It does mobilize. You still need a binder with it. My favorite binder is actually about to come out on the market, so you'll have to get some of this when it does. It's called Carboxy. It's going to be through Cellcore. I've been experimenting with it. I've probably got a few clients on here watching maybe that have tried it. It's incredible. I took it one time, and I've never had huge mold problems, but I did get into some mold at my girlfriend's place, and it got in my, and I could tell it was in my nose. Well, I took it orally. I smelled mold for a week after I took Carboxy. Nothing else I've ever taken has been that powerful at grabbing stuff. So that's probably my favorite one, even though it's not technically on the market. It is the active ingredient of biotoxin binder, but it'd be like 30 biotoxin binders at once.
Wow. Get me some. Hey, do you know somebody? Can you get me some?
It'll be out in a couple of weeks. And then I'll give you a ring. I actually was just collecting testimonials from clients that I've used it with who were sitting back that it was life-changing, and they've been moldies for a long time. So I had to be very selective on when I used it because it's so powerful. All right, but you know, you're talking about red light with mold, and I just had to throw this out there. I use the red light all the time with people that are super sensitive, because what happens, and I'm gonna pull my red light out again, you know, can't get too much of it. Just have it on my face while we're talking here. I use the red light with people all the time because what happens is it helps to increase energy, and mold people, they have no energy in their cells. So
Right.
their mitochondria are crashed. So if you just red light for a minute or two, sometimes that's enough for a mold person because you'll start to get a Herx reaction, which if you all watch me, yes, I've been red lighting now for like 30 minutes. I also take a lot of supplements that are way over the top because I got to make sure I can handle it before I tell you guys to do it. But for all those super sensitive out there that react to all the binders, try some red light first. Try some fasting with your red light, and then get
Right.
into the sauna and just slowly put in some of those binders, like he's talking about the charcoals, the level 1 as he called it, and that's where you get going from there. You can even, which he so kindly designed for me, hook this up and in the shower, put it on your glass, and then you can stand in the shower with it there. So now you have red light, hot water, the red light structuring the water, and I'm just telling you, it's incredible what red light can do. I am the massive fan of it. My staff all have bought red lights for themselves or use mine in the office these days. All right, sorry. I'm so excited to talk about red light because I love this stuff.
Well, wait, let me correct you. Let me correct you just for 1 second. That is not a waterproof device. So you're not taking it into the shower with you.
It's
We
stuck on the
actually
outside.
for you. And actually this is, you're getting the total credit. I might actually ask you to sign every box of that we send out because from your own, words, we developed a little suction cup that you can actually take those panels and suction them on the outside of the door of that slides on your shower stall if you have that. And so the lights will actually penetrate through the glass and come into the shower stall. And then as you're showering, it will actually restructure the water that's coming through, which is Gerald Pollack's work on the 4th phase of water, how restructured water will actually increase your cell energy and cell methylation and cell function in general. So, you hit it right on the head. And when you started telling me about what you're currently doing, I thought, well, there's an easier way. And I went out, jerry rigged it, you're the first one in the world that has that format. And I'm so happy that you brought it to me and that we're going to do this together and bring it out to the public because they're going to love it. Absolutely love it.
They are. I've been doing this jerry rigged, even more than your jerry rigged for a while now. And I'm telling you, red lighting in the shower is amazing. There's just something different, even relaxing about it. But that's a whole nother topic. Just relaxing
Right.
in the red light, the infrared light that's kind of bringing the day to a close or waking you up. Either way, because the red light that you get in your daily life is sun up and sun down. So whether you take a shower at night or you take a shower in the morning, red light is a perfect thing to have in there to just hit your body and affect you for sleep wake patterns. There's so much to it. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't know, I love it. But you had one idea, and how does red light make castor oil packs better? Because I do castor oil packs to tons of people. I use Queen of Thrones castor oil packs, and I've actually never heard you should red light while castor oil packing.
Yeah, I'll tell you how that works. Actually, castor oil packing comes from Central Europe. It's about 100-year-old therapy. Remember now, you dial back in the history of medicine. We know modern medicine today, it's mostly just going to hospital or going to clinic if it's an allopathic approach, and they fill you up with drugs and all that stuff you see on TV. Back in Europe in those days, like my grandmother, I'm a little much older than you are, and my parents and they were first generation US, and their parents were from Europe. And so this technique is actually coming from Central Europe. And so natural castor oil has amazing qualities in healing the body, both inside and out. And so what we discovered, and it happened serendipitously, as a lot of things we discover in lab and just in daily life. We were working with a group out of a very highly developed and respected compounder out of Austin, Texas, named Premier Research Laboratories. They make excipient-free supplements. You probably know the brand. And so actually Dr. Bob Marshall was one of my mentors in one of the areas of my own development. So I was very fortunate to know him in very, very close way. And so they had a very primitive approach to using castor packing. And what they would use you need to combine heat in order to create vasodilation, as we mentioned earlier. So in Europe, they were using hot water bottles. And then as it came to the US, they would use a regular heating pad to basically warm up the area, improve circulation, then put you take natural castor oil on we use a organic felt sort of pad to soak it up, usually a 2 to 4 inch square patch. So then you put a little bit of the castor oil, soaks it up, and then you put the patch over the area, generally an organ that you want to cleanse. So it's non-invasive, but yet very incredible. And then over the protocol that PRL was using, it took 10 sessions over almost 2.5 to 3 weeks in order for you to muscle test and discover that you're lowering your toxic burden on that organ, usually liver or pancreas. So we developed a whole series of healing pads. So you see the Trilight panel that you use, but we also have a full range of healing pads that have full spectrum infrared, not just the near frequency as the Trilight panel. And one of the clinicians, gave the protocol to PRL clinician, gave the protocol to a patient. The patient didn't have a heating pad, but had our healing pad. And they did the same protocol that I just described, but when they muscle tested, they only needed three sessions of castor packing for them to be completely healed, like the organ to be completely cleansed. And they couldn't figure out what was it. They didn't know infrared then. And so it was my first introduction to PRL and Dr. Marshall and Dr. Forbes. They invited me to come to their place and present to them. And I didn't really know where they were in the hierarchy. I treat everybody the same way, Jaban. We're all people, and there's no ego involved in this. And so I came in as sort of a blank slate. And then afterwards, some of my friends said, people wait years to get an audience with these people, and you just sort of walk through the front door. And the reason why was because of how powerful the sun energy is in healing the body as a platform. And so to simplify this, and I've written out the protocol, and I'm happy to share it with you and share it with, so you can share it with your network. Basically, you take the infrared technology, you warm up the area that you want to detox for somewhere between 5 to 8 minutes. It takes about 8 minutes in an adult-sized person for you to get enough frequency in the body, in the cell, in order for there to create a physiological shift. So 5 to 8 minutes, you have the pad on the area you want to detox. You put the castor pack on top of that area you want to detox. It's saturated with castor oil. Use all organic, is the way we go. And then you take like a parchment paper and you put that on top of the castor pack. Then you put the healing pad on top of the parchment paper, because these light frequencies will go through paper. It will go through your clothing. In fact, the only thing that filters infrared frequencies is latex or silicone. Basically the infrared frequencies, the light energy drives that castor oil through your skin, through your tissues, through your muscle, right into the organ. And then the rest is just beautiful, because the body wants the detox. The body doesn't really want to hold all these toxins. But you know what? It's kind of like we lost our GPS. Like, we're so toxic, we're so far away from the way nature intended us to be, is the way I feel, that we kind of lost our way. But as you know from working out, muscles have memory. The body has a memory. If you can sort of get yourself pointed back into that natural healing direction, then I'm sure you've seen this in clinic. It sort of you start to heal exponentially. And in the beginning, it's a little slow. It's not a fast thing by any means. And generally, well, particularly with Lyme, you can build up toxins, and it could take years, especially if you get exposed when you're younger and your immune system is super strong. It may be 10 years before you actually get symptomatic, right? So to come down off that toxic mountain, to do it the healthy way, is really one step at a time, just like you climb the mountain. And so, that's our approach. We just do it low and slow. We take a look at, how symptomatic the individual is that's presenting themselves and how they're presenting. And then we contour our basic general protocol to fit their needs, because all of us are individuals and the way we interpret our environment is different from person to person. And so we want to really take the time and pay attention to that. And I know that you do that. This is your approach to the world. It's one of the reasons why I really love what you're doing in so many ways.
Well, now I've got all kinds of ideas. As you're talking here, I'm thinking red light on the castor oil pack with some hydroxygen in it. I always like to do a little bit of binder with it. So whether I'm doing metal, it's the HMET binder. If I'm doing biological toxicity, it's more of the biotoxin binder while I'm doing it. Adding TUDCA in there is one of my favorite things to do. TUDCA is great for gallbladder and liver. But now adding that red light is that just next level. And, like I said, I love my red light. And everybody that's been on here tonight has to know I love red lights. I post about them all the time because they have changed my life. I mean, I got my testosterone ran, guys. For the guys out there, you have to have the male parts for your testosterone level to go way up. My testosterone was over 900 when I was wore out. I mean, I wasn't eating or sleeping. I was wore out, and I got it tested. And I was using red light, and it skyrocketed. So ladies out here on the call, if you are married and you want to help your man, red light's incredible for that and for the detoxing. I mean, it just simply supercharges the whole body. And I know I'm all over the place right now. I just got off of the castor oil packing because I just love red light.
Plus, you're getting charged up as we're talking. You're charging up your batteries right now. So you're going to be like a little ever ready bunny running around, I guess wherever you are today, to settle down. So
I am. Well, I'm in Cabo San Lucas.
I love that area of Mexico. It's one of my favorites. We would go every year as a family. Fantastic. Really great.
It's my first time I'm down here to do a summit just to learn and try and help progress my practice and learning and knowledge so I can continue to help more people. So with red light, the Therasage sauna, you have red light in there, right?
Yeah, we have two versions. Well, first off, we have full spectrum. So that means we're catching near frequencies, mid and far in all of our sauna applications. Mm-hmm. In the one that has the Trilight system with red light and a little more balance towards the or the tipping the needle a little bit towards the near spectrums is the Thera 360 Plus. Mm-hmm. It's only a few $100s more difference. There's more than a few $100s difference in the technology between the two. Both are awesome, but we're trying to keep the spread really tight between the two units because I believe that the 360 Plus is the sauna of the future. We're 5 years or more ahead of the rest of the world in this development of this particular device, and it's truly amazing. And just when I think I kind of know it all, I discover something else, and I'm going, "Oh my God, it's just going back to school again." So I've been fortunate in that way, and we're living in troubled times now, and so people need to understand that they can get home remedies like this and solutions that don't take the place of someone educated and that can guide them like you, but are a great addition to add to their healing platform that only makes your work a little bit better. And you're a healer, and so you're not interested in having your waiting room filled with patients that are just coming back after one after another. You want to heal them, and you want them to tell their friends that you're a healer and you actually fix them. Mm-hmm. And that way you're really touching more lives. And that's why I love being with you tonight and having the opportunity to share my knowledge with the viewers, because they need to understand that these are inexpensive natural resources that we can harness and get them into our home and use them in conjunction with the protocols that you put together to individualize their treatment plan so that they can actually live out their dreams. It pains me to think that, when I look at the trends in healthcare these days, chronic healthcare, that so many people are just will never realize their full potential because of their environment and because of the toxic world that we're living in. And they need to really understand it's not that I make the best sauna ever, but just that they need to understand that there are real solutions out there and ways and places that you can go to find this out. And that's a double-edged sword, because you go to the internet and you get a lot of disinformation also. It's more confusing. And that's actually something that also pains me, because as you know, when you're healthy and you're strong, you feel like you got all the time in the world to conquer, whatever challenges you might have, right? But when
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling sick, when you're like laying in bed thinking there's no way out of this, you don't really have all the time in the world to figure it out. And then when you go to the internet to try to find out what is the best device or protocol you might need, you get deluged with information, some accurate, some not accurate, makes it more confusing. And so I feel part of yours and my responsibility is, in a way, to weigh through all of that noise of information and cut right down to the things that work, and how they are best applied to the individual, so that you really can help them realize their dreams. And that's really part of my core goals and what we're doing here at my company.
Well, I love that. And we just have a few more minutes before we end here at an hour. I think that's when Instagram likes to get rid of us. They like
Holy
to cut it
mackerel.
off around an hour.
Boy,
So I'm going to put you on the hot seat, because we've got a few more things I got to ask you. Some
let's
of the
go.
big things out there with things like this and your sauna, and I'm going to put this back up here for the new people that have come. EMF is always a huge concern. First of
Correct.
all, one, do these things have high EMFs, low EMFs, medium EMFs, and your sauna? And then the second piece to answer on that, why is EMF important?
Okay. EMF is a category of what I call exogenous frequencies. They're not made by nature. And they basically are frequencies that oscillate 80 to 90 times higher than the frequency of our bodies. And so what happens when you take a natural being, an animal or a plant, and you put them in an environment that's influenced with EMF that's oscillating up here, it draws your body frequency up towards that higher oscillating frequency. It takes you out of the game from an energetic point of view. And so we are energetic beings. And so each of our cells are like little batteries with a plus and a minus. And when that battery is imbalanced, as it is these days, because we have more plus, we're lacking earth energy, negative ions from the earth and things like that. So our bodies are already not functioning properly, because electrically we're not balanced. And so EMF actually pulls us away from our natural balance. That's the first thing. Infrared frequencies and wavelengths don't have any EMF in it. It's the alternating current of the device when you plug it into the wall. That's what generates the EMF, and also ELF, extreme low frequencies, dirty electricity. We're actually remediating both now. Most people are just focusing on EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. We're actually looking at the full spectrum of exogenous frequencies, man-made frequencies, to try to filter out all of them. And we've come up with real solutions. I came upon, it was a notion, this was 15 years ago, when I started making saunas, infrared saunas and all that stuff. I started thinking, well, here I am harnessing the beauty of full spectrum frequencies of sunlight, which is, I need to bring that to the body, but I'm delivering it with a device that you plug into a wall. And what's your body going to do? How is it going to reconcile EMF, exogenous frequencies, and natural frequencies? And frankly, 15 years ago, I didn't know, but I knew that I wanted to remove the conflict the body would have. And so I remediated, learned, taught myself how to block and shield all the EMFs that our devices were generating. My latest opus of the work that I'm doing now is actually using harmonizing technology to actually build the body field, build our own energy field that we have around us. So we block, shield, and we also harmonize, which nobody is doing. We're just starting to write and talk about it. Part of what we do at Therasage when I invent things is I actually employ them in our devices, and I don't talk about them. I don't charge anything extra for them. And sometimes years go by before I bring it out, because I think that sometimes the education gets in the way of actually the the progress. I don't know if that sounds funny or not, but I'd rather do it and not talk about it. And then later on, we can backfill with the science, the information, and so forth. This all comes from my research center. And so EMF basically isn't really good for us on many levels. And if you look at Thomas Cowan's work, you know, he correlated all of the exogenous frequencies, 3G, 4G, 5G, against all the pandemics of all of the viruses that occurred on the planet. And 3 months before, like influenza and Ebola, and now the pandemic that we have now, there was 3 months before, there were releases of a new stage of G networks, that frequencies that travel around the earth. So it takes a while for the animal kingdom to actually acclimate to the change of the frequency of of EMFs around the world. And what happens first are the lower order animals and organisms, which are viruses, bacteria, and so forth. They actually respond faster to these shifts, and that's why, you know, we get sick, because our bodies have not caught up to the shift in these energies, in a sense. So back to EMF. We shield and we block, and so all of our devices basically have no EMF. Actually, because our devices are guided by, they're considered FDA Class 2 medical devices, so we've gone for the highest credentialing. We actually use third-party consultants that is required by FDA to look at our work to make sure that it meets a certain standard. We actually are higher than the FDA standard, but that's fine, because we feel like we're pioneers in what we do. And so at the minimum, we have the FDA standard, which is considered the gold standard around the globe for different kinds of frequencies. So EMF, basically in our devices, we don't have any. They are part of the spectrum of frequencies that are man-made. They come from alternating current of things that you plug in. There are ways to protect yourself. The first part is to understand that they're not good for us. The second thing you need to understand about EMF is it's the relationship of the device that is sending the EMF and your body. And so, for instance, a simple desk fan, in the motor behind the desk fan generates an extreme amount of EMF. Because there's no control over the fan companies, they don't really shield that motor very well. So the back of that fan is generating a lot of EMF. If you took a Gauss meter next to that fan, you'd see a very high level of EMF coming off. But as you stepped away from that fan, maybe a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, that level starts to drop off tremendously, okay? And so if you had a fan in your room and it was on 10 feet away, yes, there's EMF in the room, but is it affecting your body? That's the true crux of our discussion. Where are you in relationship to that EMF or whatever's generating it, and how is your body interpreting it? And so we've shielded, we've blocked, and now we harmonize in all of our technology to support our body field and to allow us to get the pure healing energies of infrared. And I think that's what separates us a lot from other purveyors out there, other device developers.
I love the explanation. I appreciate it, because so many people are always asking, one, does it off-gas? Two, does it have EMF? And I know you guys use bamboo, and it's all natural, so the off-gassing should be extremely minimal to none. Now we know EMF is minimal to none. So now you have red light in a sauna, which, yeah, I'm still using the red light. It's been an hour, hopefully. I can sleep tonight, right? I'm going to be running around having fun, talking to all the other docs down here.
Just keep texting me. I'll be up most of the night myself.
So is there anything else you wanted to add in tonight before we jump off here?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me on. And I really want to address the troubled times that we're all feeling these days. I mean, you're on the front line. You see it every day. I feel like I'm just behind you on the front line, supporting all of your efforts. There is light at the end of this tunnel. And we do hope that everybody understands from tonight that there are real solutions, and they're not extraordinarily expensive. You can afford this. And, you know, for less than what it costs to buy a cup of coffee, you can bring an infrared sauna into your home, and you can actually create that healing platform that's going to make a big shift for you and your family, and maybe to teach your kids and their families to stay healthy and to actually fulfill their dreams. So, find their fulfill their dreams. And so thank you so much for having me on. And I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of more of these kinds of episodes. I love what I'm doing, and I love the opportunity to share that with your viewers and you. And so we've made water filtration systems that incorporate infrared. We've made the saunas, we made healing pads, and we've made different stacked kind of synergies, ozone, and we make a diffuser that brings essential oils in. And we just try to combine all of these different, natural events to just create a symphony to help the body just bounce back to the way that we were supposed to be. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. So much amazing information. Probably have to have you back sometime, because this is just one of the pieces of technology that I've gotten from you guys, because I do love some of the things you're doing. The little mini ozone unit that I have here for my bathroom, we'll talk about that another time. So have a great rest of your night. I appreciate you, and we'll talk again soon.
Perfect. Thanks, Jay. Have a great one.
Bye.
Appreciate you.